Samsung has been making quite a stink in not only the smartphone world, but the technology world. Anything from televisions to smartphones to smart cameras to smart camera phones to smartphone cameras. You pretty well get the idea. They're just not afraid to take risks, and I suppose when you're a gigantic corporation like them, you have the money and resources to do that and to kind of test the waters. Well, over 2 years ago now, Samsung announced and released the Galaxy Note, which was the first time the market had really ever seen a gigantic screened smartphone. Surprisingly enough, they welcomed it with relatively open arms. So naturally, after its success, they released the Note 2 the next year, which was an even bigger success. And the Note 2 is more than just a success for Samsung, but a success for the entire market, because it's not uncommon to see, phones upwards of 5.5, 6-inch screens now. And regardless of whether you think that's appropriate or not, they're there, and it offers another option for variety. So we have to thank the Note and the Note 2 for kind of paving the way for that, if you like the phones or not. Not many people revisit these phones, and even after 6, 7 months now, the Note 2 is a very relevant competitor, and it's still compared with a lot of modern phones, the S4, the One. So, despite what your brain thinks, you don't actually need the latest and greatest technology. So let's take a look at this phone after over half a year and see how it stacks up and how it's performed in the time. So the Galaxy Note 2 has done a lot for me. Past allowing my brain to accept the fact that a phone can be bigger than 3, 4, 5-inch screen. It's gotten me into development for whatever reason. I just never got into it before. And if you looked at my Note 2 right now, it's rooted, the bootloader is unlocked, and I'm running Android 4.2.2. So it's just really allowed me to get into the whole ecosystem a lot better. If you do that or if you don't do that, that's neither here nor there. That's my preference. And since day one it was rooted, and since day one that the bootloader unlock was available, I did that. I may have may or may not have break my phone for a day, but neither here nor there, I guess. I did fix it thanks to those awesome guys at XDA. Huge shout out to you. But the Note 2 has done quite a bit. It was the first quad-core phone to hit the States. It was, the first phone that really hit mainstream as far as a big phone. It's still performed exceptionally well since then. So why would I still be looking at it now? Well, it's still a very relevant and very popular phone, and a lot of reviewers don't come back and review it. Some of them do, to give them credit. So the big question is, how does the Note 2 fare for most consumers, unlike myself, people who don't unlock the bootloader, flash ROMs, and all that stuff? And the answer to that is actually very well. Housed inside this thing is a quad-core processor. That thing does not slouch. I foresee this phone, even if you were to buy it today, it could still last you very well on a 2-year contract. Times are changing very fast. Technology always does, but this phone is going to last you a while. When you've got a big phone, you better put big specs in it, because people are going to demand it. And Samsung certainly delivered with that. TouchWiz could use a little bit of revamp. It's still functional. It's a little cartoony for most people, yeah, but look at iOS 7. That's pretty cartoony too. We'll see how that fares when it goes to the general public. Things like the S Pen, the electronic signatures are huge now. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but electronics are taking over the world, and that's a huge deal. You can't get a more accurate electronic signature than what you can on a Note 2 or any Note device or something with the S Pen type digitizer. It's just so accurate. How about for the road warrior, somebody who travels a lot, or maybe you're going to an amusement park and you're worried that you might be taking a lot of pictures and your battery will die? The Note 2, that worry is basically non-existent. I can go, even on my 4.2 ROM, which drains battery a little more, I can wake up at 8 o'clock, use it a lot, go to bed at almost midnight, and have literally 50% left. And that's not even with a TouchWiz 4.1 optimized ROM, or stock ROM. That's really good. Speaking of camera, the camera even today is still one of the best cameras out there. Sure, it was one-upped by the Galaxy S4's 13 megapixel shooter, which is really a 9.6 in the standard 16:9 ratio, but it can be 13 in a 4:3 ratio. But even today, that 8 megapixel shooter on the back is great. It still takes some of the best pictures that any reviewer will agree that they have seen. Um, Compared to the HTC One, which has been causing quite a bit of controversy, we're not going to go there. The HTC One does collect better light. So how does it sound when you're using it for calls? As good as it always has. I've never had a microphone or speaker issue with the Note 2. The speaker on the back is very loud. Granted, it's a single speaker compared to HTC's boom sound. Everything sounds, quieter. But relatively speaking, it's actually still a very good speaker. Probably one of the loudest out there, honestly. I can take a shower and still hear music over the sound of my shower and maybe me singing. I can watch a video in a relatively noisy area and still hear it enough. Things like that people do on a daily basis. People do listen to music in the shower. People do listen to videos and watch videos in an area that's not entirely quiet. When you're around with your friends and someone says, "Oh, I remember that one cat video with that one cat meowing underwater," or whatever it was. Hey, you got the big phone. Pull out your phone and look it up on YouTube. I want to see that video real quick. And people are chattering back and forth. You can still hear it. You can still see it perfectly fine. The resolution is still good. Compare it side by side to something like the S4 or the One or the DNA, something with a 1080p screen. Yeah, you'll notice it is not as sharp, but you will not notice pixelation. Never in my time using this have I noticed pixelation in anything. It's not 1080p, but it's 720, which is still very good. So what's the bottom line for this phone, the Note 2? The bottom line is that it's still a very relevant phone today. If you were to walk into a store and find this for, say, $50, $100, $150 on a contract, I would absolutely do nothing but recommend it if you want a phone with a bigger screen. The biggest issue people have is, "Oh man, how does that fit in your pocket?" It fits in my pocket just fine. It fits in my pocket just like any other phone would. And no pair of shorts or jeans or pants or whatever, nothing has it ever stuck out of my pocket. So by today's standards, today's market, I would say the Note 2 probably holds an 8 out of 10. It doesn't have the standard 1080p resolution screen. It doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't have the quote-unquote standard 13 megapixel camera that most phones have, and it doesn't have the also quote-unquote boom sound or front-facing speakers that should have existed from the start. For honestly, I don't know why they were ever on the back. I don't know. Whatever. So by those standards, it would probably get about an 8 out of 10. Is it the Samsung plasticky design? Yeah, it is. I'm not a huge fan of it. You don't have many other options, but since Samsung has given such a good option, I think it is a good option. If you want something like the Optimus G Pro, by all means, it's another great one. I'm not partial to any brand in particular. The fact is, in today's market, this is still a very relevant and great choice of a phone. If you would use the S Pen, I would say get it. If you don't, I would say go for something like the G Pro, because it's a little bit faster processor and better camera, and for your money, can be great. The DNA is another option, not necessarily the same category, but still a great phone. So thank you for watching it. If you've enjoyed it, I would hugely appreciate you give me some sort of feedback, whether it be a like or thumbs up, whatever you want to call it, or subscribe. I want suggestions from people. How can I make my videos better? I'm still fairly new at this. I know I'm not perfect. I'm trying to improve based on ideas I have and that I observe from other people. But I want to know what you want.